Alright, I'm going to continue my teaching of this book right here. And we're going to talk about the judge. Alright? Now this would have been some kind of a local politician with the right to settle disputes. Could have been a mayor. It could have been some kind of a representative of some kind. We don't know. There's not enough information in this story to tell you what position this guy actually held. We do know he was authorized to settle disputes. And we also know that he knew the Torah inside and out. He knew everything side to side, front to back, top to bottom, you name it. He knew it. Now then, this should have been a pretty open and shut case. That's what Jesus was saying. This should have been a pretty open and shut case. We got a widow here. She has no place to go. She has no male children of any kind. And she needs to continue living in her husband's residence despite the fact that her husband was dead. Well, what happens if the husband's family, her in-laws, okay, this widow's in-laws, weren't very happy with this widow? Well, if they could come up with a sufficient enough bribe, they could cause a Judean politician like this, a Judean judge, to rule against the widow. You say, well, that could never happen. These Jews, they knew the law frontwards and backwards, especially people in high positions. Well, then we have to take a look at the story of David and Bathsheba. Of all the people in Judea that knew the law frontwards and backwards, we have David. Yeah, he broke the law. Why should these people be any different? Just because you were a Jew and you knew the law doesn't necessarily mean you kept it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's the precise reason why Jesus came back. Because even if you were able to keep the first 9 commandments, you can't even think of a crime, much less commit it. That's what coveting's all about. It's coveting things you should not have. And when you're doing that, the first time you do it, the first time you think about something you shouldn't have, you've already broken the law. Doesn't matter what the other 9 says, that's the one you're going to be nailed on. Pretty tough law. The only person I've ever known that was able to keep that 24/7 was Jesus. Jesus could do it. The rest of us, not so much. And that's why we have Jesus. If we didn't have him, we wouldn't have any hope. God knew that. That's why God invented this system. So you become dependent on Jesus, which Jesus is the Son of God. So you're really dependent on God. He came up with a foolproof method of causing you to be dependent upon him. I think that was pretty slick. God's a pretty slick entity, I can tell you that. That's real brain work. So, we have a Judean judge. He's considering taking a bribe. And he's also considering throwing this widow out on the streets to starve to death. Well, the widow just wouldn't have this, so she cried louder. She made this a very public escapade. She made a public spectacle of herself just so she could get justice. Well, that put the judge in a tight spot. If he accepted the bribe, knowing what he was doing was wrong, it could cost him his career. Remember, this widow didn't go to a Roman judge. She went to a Jewish judge who obeyed the Torah. Now, if he took that bribe and that became public, that could ruin his career. He wouldn't be a judge anymore. The other judges would see to that. So this really put him in a tight spot. So, like I said, the judge originally wasn't going to let this widow stay in her husband's home. But because she cried out so loud, he was put in a corner and he had to do it. He had to make the widow, he had to cause the widow to be able to live in her husband's house, even though the husband was dead. And that was to the displeasure of the in-laws. I have a feeling in this story that the in-laws were not happy that that widow was going to stay in her husband's home. I think they had plans for it, and she was a disruption to it. And they knew they couldn't kill her, so they're just trying to get her thrown on the streets. That didn't go out too well. See what I mean? And there you have it. And that's what this parable has been all about. Now, I will tell you more about this in a future video, so stay tuned.